Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Hospitality Marketing, show number 264. With us, we have some very special co-hosts, which I already know I'm going to have difficulty with the names, but I do want to give some credentials to all of them. We have Xenia Muntean.
Yeah.
All right, one time. And Miruna. And Miruna, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. How do you say
Dragomir.
Dragomir. Okay. I've already tried to butcher them with my attempt of Romanian translation software. That didn't work. So we'd like to dive into a little bit of why it's so special for us. Oh, and we have Dan. Yeah, everybody knows Dan. Okay. So we'll have other co-hosts join us as we go along as well. I'd like to point out some things about Xenia that first off, she's Forbes 30 under 30, which I'm going to ask you how the heck you did that, because that's stunning to be in that kind of category of people.
Top secret.
Man, that is rarefied air for people like that. Also, I'd like to say that under Forbes 100 Women to Founders in Europe to follow on Twitter and LinkedIn. 7 female. Wait a minute. To say this correctly. 7 female CEOs to join in Techstars for London's Accelerator program. On and on and on. But the real key element to our pleasure of having her and her cohort in crime, Miruna, on is that Xenia is the president and CEO and co-founder of a platform that I am very endeared to, which is Plannable.io. It's an amazingly excellent platform. I've used it for years. I had the pleasure of using it for years, I should say. And it was just awesome to think that I could actually bring the person that it popped in their head to do this and to bring it to life and then to bring it to market. Oh, and I'm sorry, let me introduce Mr. Robert Cole, who is also very rare to be on our show because he has been busy. He works with J.D. Powers, Focusrite, and a few other large names he likes floating around. He does a lot of data research, and he is the person that provides our list that I quickly at the last minute sent over to you to say, hey, these are the topics that we kind of roll over to and so forth. But with all that in mind, thank you so much for being here, both of you. And I would love to open up the floor and just say, wow, where do you want to bring us? Because I'd love to know more just from all that you're doing, but all that came to this and where you're going with it and all the fun things that it does. So please go right ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with my background a bit and with why I started Plannable in the first place. So I want to give a bit of context to everyone. Before Plannable, I had a social media marketing agency. I actually started that business during my second year of university. I was super into advertising, obsessed with advertising since I was a teenager, and I was always dreaming of doing something, building my own venture in that space at some point in time. So I started an agency, and during that agency, I worked with brands in different industries. One of my first clients back then was Coca-Cola, but I also had businesses in the hospitality industry as well as clients. And back then in my agency days, that's when I realized the pain point that we are currently solving at Plannable, and that's the collaboration side. I realized that everything, that happens before posts are actually published on social media, that all happens in spreadsheets and a lot of back and forth emails. And it's a very clunky process and a very time wasting process. So I wanted to speed it up, simplify it. And that's, the main reason of why we created Plannable, to just bring a bit of order to the chaos that marketing planning is sometimes. So that's kind of how the story of Plannable got started.
Coca-Cola client in college. Yeah, that's no big deal. No, do that all the time. Yeah, I used to have, nobody has a client in college. Okay, so.
Well, it was Coca-Cola locally, to be honest. It wasn't like, the headquarter.
It's still
company,
Coca-Cola.
It was a great client, a great logo to have in your portfolio, 100%. But yeah, it was still a small business, quite a boutique agency.
Some of the things, just personally for me, from my using of your platform, I have found incredible value now from an internal team perspective. And I don't know if that was a strong emphasis of when you first developed it, that you were thinking the internal team of several people contributing, this would create some sort of normalized platform, or whether you always envisioned it that it would be a client gateway platform that allowed the client to moderate a little bit of what they're doing. And by all means, explain what I'm referring to, I guess, and just some senses of functionalities and usabilities of it, because like I said, I use it from a client perspective a lot. Oh, but somebody's putting you from your time zone, by the way. This is Tristan Heaword with 3 and 6 Agency. He is somewhere in North New Guinea. No, I mean North England.
Close.
So yes, but I mean, sorry, go right ahead.
Sure. So I'll give a bit of, I'll tell you the before story and then the after story of like Planable. So before Planable, our customers are most of the times using a spreadsheet to plan their schedule for the next week or for the next month on social media. So it's a spreadsheet. Each column represents, you have one column for like the caption, one column for the image, one column for the date of the publishing, one column for labels, and so on and so on. So it's a very, a kind of clunky spreadsheet that you have to maintain, that you have to format and invest a lot of time to keep it at least a bit presentable in front of your team or in front of your stakeholders. And then you send that spreadsheet to your team or to your client, and there's a lot of back and forth discussion on that spreadsheet. So it's not very centralized, and where you keep your posts is also not where you discuss those posts. So it's different environments. And where you store your media is also not where you plan your posts and where you discuss those posts. So you usually have some kind of like Dropbox or Drive folder where you host and store your media files. As you can imagine, a lot of time can kind of fall through the cracks of this process, of this, very clunky process. And now it's so much more streamlined. Like with Planable, you can create content. It looks exactly as the final version on social media. So you can actually visualize how your posts are going to look like in the end. And you can collaborate in a very simple and streamlined way with everyone on your team, or if you're an agency, with clients. And when we started the platform in the first place, we started it with the agency-client relationship. But in the meanwhile, we transitioned, and we have so many more brands, even in the hospitality industry, that are using Planable to align themselves with their own stakeholders, either with like photographers that are, making photo shoots of the service or the staff of the place. They collaborate with the photographers, or they collaborate with their team or with the owners, or everyone that needs to be involved, and everyone who's interested on how is their presence on social media going to look like. They involve them in the process, and they have one single place where everyone can see, what's going to happen on the social media channels, discuss the content for the next week or for the next month, improve it with their own opinion, contribute with feedback, and if there's an approval process in there, they can manage it directly in Planable as well.
Interesting. You brought about photography and shareabilities, and I hadn't even thought about it as a usability, because you do get this. Some of the things that we've used it for, just because I don't know. Does anybody else? I mean, Tris, have you ever used Planable or anything like that?
I was on mute there. No, I haven't. I have not used Planable. Used the usual sort of Hootsuite and everything else that's out there. But it's funny, as you were saying this, I've just been looking at the website, and we've just been having that discussion internally as to what tool we're going to use for social. Are we going to go with it? And I've literally just slacked that to Ben and to Tracy, our social media person. So. Fantastic. I'm just looking through it now. I have a million questions, but we'll leave that to the end.
No, you're saying the part that I use most, and which also makes owners most comfortable, is they understand the value of social media, but they don't know how to translate their team into putting something up that they can moderate, that they can go to and say, hey, look, post this stuff up. Tell me when you want to run it. Tell me why you're running it, but let me look at it and see if I like it, want it to run the way you expect it to run. Because sometimes, and I use this example with the clients, Brad Pitt walks into your hotel and you take a picture of him, or your bellman does, okay? And they put it up, and because they have access to the account, and it's not a good fit. One, you don't want to tell people that they're stars at the hotel while they're there, because that's a little bit of privacy. And then the other is, it doesn't maybe fit in the storylines at the time. That this isn't really probably the optimistic time to really reflect that you're that kind of hotel that somebody like that would show up to. So putting that and saying, this is great, thank you so much, we got it, but we're going to change the scheduling to fit this storyline at this time, and make it so that the owner feels good that they're not just rampantly, cute pictures of a kitty cat versus sunset versus Brad Pitt, popping up in your feed with no rhyme or reason to it. And that's been a real value for us when we use it. So.
It's very interesting because we were just talking about this and looking at, talking to the customers that we do have in the hospitality industry. And I think kind of like a unique point in hospitality is that there's such a strong focus on the visual aspect of your presence. I mean, all social is visual, but a lot of industries can kind of get away with snap picture that they just take of their backyard or whatever with their iPhone, maybe that's even a bit blurry. Well, in hospitality, this kind of people want to see that perfection and that beauty where they could or want to go. And so
the aspirational aspect of, the industry, you want to see places that inspire you, or you need to be, ideal.
Yeah. And, it reflects on everything, especially on Instagram, and especially, the grid, it has to kind of fit together nicely. And there are so many amazing tools for the publishing side of things, just like you, Tristan, kind of mentioned, but you need that visual, that obsession with how it's going to look like in the end and how it's going to fit together and, the entire puzzle.
Yeah.
So do you create the post, actually create it in Plannable, or do you create it and export it into?
You create it in Plannable. It goes from kind of ideation until the publishing side of things. So it covers everything.
Mm-hmm. And are you able to store any imagery in there as well? Because we were just talking about imagery, and one of the things is, like you said, somebody takes a random shot and it's not an approved shot of something that you want. If there's a bank of photos that they're allowed to use and you can upload them and improve them and stuff like that, that would be a neat aspect.
So we actually wanted to talk about media.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm talking like it's my product because I feel like I own the dang thing for so many years. Everybody, I'm like, no, just this. I'm sorry. Let the creator talk about it.
Yeah.
So we actually wanted to talk about media assets and how important that is. And I know Miruna, you had some ideas, some really great ideas around that. So I'll let you take it.
Yeah. So for one thing, you've got obviously the new photos that you're just taking now, even if it's, event wise, that's also something you hold. You have something special going on at your venue. You want that kind of uploaded fast and picked through and sorted through, maybe with some other collaborators. Then there's, Brad Pitt walks into the hotel, but there are also the photo shoots, right, that you want to store, but you're not going to use them all at once. So we have the media library where you can store all of these, kind of pick and choose and just drag and drop into your post. And then another important aspect is that a lot of, I'm thinking when you take large photo shoots, you're going to want to reuse them and repurpose them. If it's, Christmassy theme, maybe next year you're going to make use of them. So a nice aspect is that in Plannable, you can see if that photo or media asset has been used before in any other post, and you can see in which post and at what times, and kind of repurpose them smartly, not kind of let's say abuse the same asset all over the time. And so,
if I could drop in that I use that a lot along with the calendar, because I find very quickly that the more people you allow engage with a client's opportunity to post stuff, sometimes they don't know that they're collaborating on the same stuff. And when you pop up the calendar and you realize that they multi-stacked one day with multiple posts because all of them thought that Tuesday at 1:00 was a great idea. And so they all post and schedule their stuff. And that's the neat part, is that the visualization of how you are arranging your posts can go into list form, calendar form, or in tile form, just so you can see. And it really is helpful, that frequency of usage of an image, that everybody has favorites. And eventually the owner comes to that, I want that sunset picture. It's like, dude, we just used that last week. No, we're not using that sunset picture again. So it helps point that out. Like, you literally can make them go log in and look and see you've used that too frequently. And also,
I think that.
Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I think this takes me to something that you mentioned. Takes me to a different idea that I have around the way we're using posts inside Plannable and the way we're labeling them. It's super important to have, every business has some topics that they usually talk about, right? So let's say, if you're a hotel, you might want to talk about about the family piece. If you're a hotel that is oriented in that direction, you might want to talk about the staff and the service and how great it is. So there's different, you might want to talk about different products, right?
The city, the environment.
About the city, the culture, the environment. So there's different, what we call in the industry, content pillars. And you want to label, and you do have the opportunity to do that in Planable. You want to label different posts based on what you're talking about. And you're going to have a count in Planable where you can see, what label are you using the most. So you can see your distribution of content across those pillars that we just mentioned. And similarly with the photos, you can see, if you're abusing any specific, content pillar, if you're talking too much about one aspect of your brand, about sunsets, if you're talking too much about sunsets and maybe too little about, the price, maybe that's something sensitive you should be talking about. Or about, during this COVID period, how you're taking care and how it's all safe, right? That might be a topic that you want to talk a bit more about. So it really, it gives you an overview of how your content is distributed across those content pillars. So that's also something nice to have.
So Tris, you face all the time when you walk into any place, people are taking pictures of you like you're a rock star kind of thing. I mean, do you tell them not to use them, or what do you do?
Well, it's a tough life. That has never, ever happened to me once in the history of my entire 40 years. So I honestly can't comment. But,
you just brought up something really, I never used the tags like that, the labels like that before. I used the labels to identify the product type. So I knew whether I was having a frequency issue with video versus image versus link versus text combinations. And until you said, it should be about storylines, because for us, we tend to run from our, again, it's like, wow, I never thought about that. It's like when you watch somebody use Excel, that you don't, you're watching them and they're pushing buttons and shortcuts that you don't use, you're like, that works like that? Just stuff different. It's like really weird that, it's like, wow, I didn't know that could do that. So I'm looking at it, like I break that up into, I tend to run with storylines, and then we time those out according to events or business cycles or whatever. And it's usually soft adventure, family, off the beaten path, local, culinary, romantic are the ones we run. And then we run those in cycles or event driven and things like that. And I never thought about classifying the labels as, this is that storyline versus it's a video with a link and text,
We discover a lot of scenarios too, honestly. Like when we talk with our customers and they tell us how they use Planable, we're like, never thought about that. One such aspect is that a few of our customers, I discovered they use labels also for kind of inspiration. So they have a label, for example, for Christmas, and then every year they kind of filter for that label and then look what they talk about last year or when this happened before, just so kind of they can repurpose or just get inspired by themselves.
We've also seen some of our customers using labels to tag a specific post that it's going to be a paid one, that it's they're going to sponsor it later. So that's an interesting use case. There's multiple ways of doing it.
So can you have multiple tags? Sorry, Loren. Can you have multiple tags so you could do so we've just talked about 3 or 4 different ways of doing that. So could you actually have 3 or 4 different tags?
Yeah, you can combine them. Yeah, you can 100% combine them.
That's cool. And with the content channels that you actually post to, obviously you've got on there the big 4. Facebook,
yeah, the big 4, yes.
Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If I'm curating or writing a post in Planable, if I'm doing that, do I have to, or can I just do one post and it will auto format and send it out to every single channel? It'll definitely do that, and so I don't have to do, because obviously you've got some of the images that you do. You put an image on Facebook and then you'll move it over to Instagram. It doesn't quite fit, doesn't quite work, or same goes for Twitter. And hopefully I've just set you up there for you to answer that question perfectly.
I love it. I love your question. Yeah. So such a good question. So you are totally 100% right. Something that looks good on Facebook might not look good on Twitter or on LinkedIn. And that is extremely important. And if you're planning it, and if you're planning your posts in a spreadsheet, you're never going to know until it's published, how it's actually going to look like in the end. Or if you use a tool like, scheduling tools such as Buffer or Hootsuite, again, it doesn't show you a live preview of the post. So you're also going to find out once it's published how, that it doesn't look good. In Planable, when you're composing a post, you can obviously select multiple platforms. You might want a post to go to 3 out of those 4 platforms or all of them. And then you can switch tabs between them and see the post while you're creating it. You can see how it's going to look like on each different platform. So, you change the tabs in the composer and you get a preview of the post in different platforms. So it actually gives you the opportunity to tweak it even before scheduling it, even before planning it. While you're creating it, it gives you the opportunity to tweak it so that it looks good on all platforms.
Yeah, so we have this kind of sorry.
No, go. Please go right ahead. Go ahead.
So we have this kind of hidden gem, we like to call it, because it's not very into your face. It's, it's a sync off button. And the idea of it is exactly what you said, Tristan. So you start by creating the draft post for all the channels, and then you sync off, and then you start tweaking, adding hashtags for Instagram and Twitter, tagging people on Twitter and LinkedIn or Facebook because they have different handles, changing the images, if you have meta descriptions that you want to change. So you start kind of tweaking it for each platform, and it's perfect as a group in the end. Yeah.
And it will go over and keep people like me from screwing up on Twitter where it says character limit has been exceeded.
Yeah.
Yes, that is. Yeah, because you're thinking, how do I need to write this? And it's bad enough when you've got to write it with a character limit for one particular set. Or, well, Facebook is not necessarily too much on the character limit. It's making sure that it's digestible. You want the post to be impact, punchy. You want grab somebody's attention so that it actually delivers the message that you want it to do. And you've got a bit of creative license with that. And then you because I don't know about you guys, but I always start with Facebook. I probably an thing, but I start with Facebook, and then I'll go right Twitter. Oh my God, how do I get that into that? It's like what? And yeah, it's like, no, I'm gonna have to go away. I'm gonna have to have a drink. Come back, and no, I still can't do it. So being able to see it live whilst you're kind of in the Facebook planning phase is probably pretty cool. I'd like to have a try of that and have a play.
It is neat.
Yeah.
I'll let you look at my account if you want to take a peek at it. But I've learned now, we just recently as an add-in, I've been underutilizing the LinkedIn aspect of tagging people or tagging businesses in it. So literally, I've been spending more time editing my LinkedIn push than some of the others because the hashtags are different in Facebook and Twitter anyway. So that's kind of like a quick, easy one, and you already have character limits, so you don't really go crazy. But in LinkedIn, I started doing page tags on them.
So that's why you keep tagging me in on LinkedIn.
You're the guy who does that.
Right.
Yeah, we're tight. Yeah, it's 3-6 and I'm the 9.
Yeah, I thought I was just feeling special then, but no, it's actually a clever tool that you've got. Right, 5. I know.
Loren, I'm surprised you didn't find the 2,000 character limit on LinkedIn. I thought you would have run into that.
I pushed it. I'm sure I pushed it. I'm sorry, I interrupted you all. What were you about to say? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nothing.
With our train of thoughts.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Have you guys thought of doing anything with WordPress, like to do to also integrate that? My daughter does a lot of work with fashion influencers, and so they're primarily focused on Instagram. But because they use Like to Know It and Restyle Me and some of these great platforms that monetize unbelievably these fashion posts, they also wind up putting it back into WordPress as well, where it's kind of the archive of everything, kind of centrally there as well.
Right. So we've actually had requests from customers to integrate WordPress because the same, workflow issues similar workflow issues you have with posts for social,
right.
Approval, silos, feedback, all of that you do have with articles and pages and whatever you're building on WordPress. So that's something we're looking into. It is definitely on our future roadmap. I think the more closer roadmap is integrating a bit more platforms, besides the big four that we already have. We're looking into YouTube, which is the most natural one. And Google My Business, again, is something that we've had quite a lot of requests, especially from local small businesses, hospitality space as well. But WordPress has been on our radar for a while. But yeah.
Yeah, that especially for travel bloggers,
yes.
Influencers, things like that. It would be a godsend for them because, again, that's exactly what they're. And they'll be in destination. They may be doing things for a hotel. They may be doing things for the destination management. Lots of different groups. So
it's funny that you mentioned. It's funny that you mentioned influencers. We were just talking to Miruna about. Since we mentioned interesting use cases of how Planable is being used, I know Miruna, you had one to share around influencers.
Yeah, so it's influencers kind of usually either work through an agency or they do the content directly for the brand that they're working with. Yeah. But we've seen often cases in which they kind of require usually approval from the brand that it's at least it kind of respects all their main guidelines. So we've seen a few of these use cases on Planable. One was an agency of influencers that kind of chose Planable to unite everyone, both the influencers and the brands. So they would ask the influencers that are working for a particular campaign to connect their Instagram pages on Planable, create their posts, and then invite the client and ask them to kind of give feedback directly, leave comments there, and then the influencer would be able to change and finally publish it to their networks. So that's kind of taking on a lot, since again, it's a lot of tweaking there, and they need to get a clear green light before actually going live.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line on this is that it could work for any type of collaboration on social media posts, really, even if it's an in-house team, if it's a social media agency with a client, or if it's like the influencer use case, as long as someone is collaborating on social media posts in any way, Planable can be adjusted to that. So it's a very flexible, tool.
And I can see how that can, sorry, Loren, I can see how that could work even with smaller hotels and not just the larger ones. Typically, you've got one person who has been given the responsibility to be the social media guru within the organization. And usually they have very limited experience with social media, especially now with COVID-19 and we're losing lots of positions and lots of skills inside hotels. I can see how Planable could actually benefit that individual because, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the hardest part of any social media strategy is the creativity. What am I actually going to post? How am I going to do something that's creative? How am I going to create something that's going to capture the imagination? And when that's left up to one person, you can get a bit burnt out, you can get a bit tired. So I like the idea where you've got the calendar, the ability to put images in there. You could get anybody in the organization to just, hey, if you've got a picture, just drop it in. You don't necessarily have to create the post, just drop it in there, and that might give me inspiration to do it if that's the hat. Because again, these people, I was speaking with one hotel just this week, and the lady I was speaking to there, she's the digital marketer. She's the social media guru. She was also duty manager that day that I was speaking to her as well. I'm like, geez, are you actually going to go downstairs and be the sous chef next?
Yeah. And the sous chef called in sick. So
exactly.
Go.
It's and she was saying she was going to go and speak to. She actually she laughed. She said, "I am actually speaking to the chef next because we're putting on an afternoon tea menu, and I'm having input on that." I'm thinking, my goodness, how many roles do you have? So something like Planable is going to be perfect for her. I will be emailing her soon.
That's such a good point. It kind of helps democratize the content process and the content creation, right? It opens it up to everyone in the organization. It always starts with the culture of the organization, if they're open to do that, of course. But if they are, they can totally use Planable like that. They can, give the power to everyone who has ideas to create content, to actually contribute. There can obviously be an approval process in there, or like some safety mechanism. So it's not, you can't actually publish it. Someone needs to oversee it and approve it and, schedule it. But everyone can chime in with ideas and, write drafts of posts. And that's, a great source of inspiration for whoever's in charge of the social page.
From a realistic point of view, we talk about, social media, and it's like, first off, people think that they have to be up at 5 a.m. to post their 5 a.m. post. And then they learn and educate that there's places like Buffer that can...
Laura, are you not getting the oh my goodness, you're just bursting all the bubbles.
I'm not even hitting coffee until 10 a.m., so no. But there's a certain realistic logistics to all of these things. There's the first level of understanding where there's schedulable things like the Buffers of the world and so forth. But to point that the sizing and so forth is different. The platforms are different. So then you look at something like a Hootsuite, like you said, Tris, that, then you start putting into bulk uploads, but then the bulk uploads, okay, you get the scheduling aspect of it, but then if there's a reporting process, like what do you have planned? Well, there's plenty of organizations out there that are throwing, here's a calendar builder. You still got to take what's on the calendar and put it into the platform for it to launch. And you still got to edit it, and somebody's got to look at it so that you didn't misspell names or words and things like this. Lauren, because thank God I have Grammarly. So you have this whole process, and then the worst thing in the world happens is something got missed, and the owner or the GM or somebody of importance above you sees it, comes down under like a ton of bricks because it reflects against them because one of their friends said, "Look what you guys posted," and it's this turmoil all the time, and nobody wants to touch that stuff. They don't, and you said there's burnout about what creativity. There's no place to harbor it. We're going to do a shared file, throw a picture in. That doesn't know it. So you're really answering a lot of the intricacies of saying, here's a calendar. It's already scheduled. Doesn't mean it's going to run until it gets approved. Any comments? We make changes. Any links we want to add? Or, hey, why don't we add this hashtag? I saw that this was floating out. That all comes around. So by the what I try to do with my clients is we try to get at least 2 weeks ahead, then 4 weeks ahead for the evergreen stuff, which brings me to a point that I'd like to ask about whether you have it and I don't know it, or I'm just at not a level to have it, or it's in your roadmap. I'd love to be able to multi-date post, some evergreen post. I'd love to be able to say, I love this one. I'd love to run it another month from now, and just have that ability to go back in and redo it, which is not hard to do. It's just, I'd love to think I could do multi-dates, I guess.
So what you can do is duplicate a post. So like if you have a post that you really loved and they actually went well, you can go back to Planable and choose the repost button. And it's basically going to duplicate it, and you can do that, 10 times and schedule them all with different dates. So it is possible, but it's not like, it's a bit more manual. It's not like the evergreen feature that you see in some platforms. It's not like you build a post and you say that every 2 weeks it, publishes again. You have to do that manually, and that's, I think we didn't want to build it like evergreen so you can, repost it every 2 days, because we don't want to, go that road where you reuse that content forever and ever. Sure. So we actually made it a bit difficult by design, because we wanted, people, we knew that the best way to go is obviously, some posts you might want to republish it as much as you can, because it's a good one. But you probably don't want to, republish it 10 times a year or more than 10 times a year, right? Like once a month. So that's kind of the reason why we did it like we did. Yeah.
I'm thinking more about Twitter, just because there's this density thing that, move to an event-driven thing or something like this. You want to curate the frequency pattern. Not that you want to carbon copy off this post. I'm just, from the frequency point of view, it gets a little arbitrary. You have 5 or 10 post variations you want to do, and you're literally plugging in time variations to each one of them over a 5-day roll or something, kind of stuff where, that's where the bulk loading does help, because it's already set, formatted. But it's just one of those, it's like, now that you explained it, the lesser of two evils, really.
So I have a quick question for you guys. So do you have an analytics tool, or do you integrate with an analytics tool so it could be looked at in the same dashboard?
No, so we don't do anything analytics-wise. We knew that there are other great tools in the analytics space out there, so we didn't want to. We wanted to do a really great job with the planning, collaboration, and workflow side. And we, you start with a great tool, and then you add a lot of features, and then you become Hootsuite.
Which is another way I think it's very smart. What you find is a lot of companies try to be everything to everyone, and then they're not good at anything. So if you're focused on the core, I think that's great. Just out of curiosity, do you have a social analytics tool that you guys like to, or that you recommend to clients?
Yes. So we actually know another startup called Social Insider that is doing some really great jobs and a really great job in the analytics space. So you know them as well.
I use them too.
What?
No, see,
I love Social Insider. That rocks. That's my secret sauce for knowing poaching comp. I mean, I can look at any competitor. I can look at any of the clients, see how they're comparing, look at their time rates, look at their best posts, look at their growth of audience. Oh yeah, I love that thing.
Yeah, so we actually partner up with them, and we bundle up when a client needs both. If a client says, well, you guys are great at collaboration and planning, it seems like such a great tool, but we really need analytics. We usually bundle up with Social Insider, and we go, as a team together. And we're like, don't go with Hootsuite, just, go with us. 2 great tools. You're not missing out on anything. There is nothing special, in the integration between those two. Because, Social Insider gets their data from Facebook directly. There's no point for us to integrate so that they can get it from us somehow. So they get double the value because we're super focused on that. And Social Insider is also super focused on analytics. And you get 2 tools that are doing, the best, in their specific category, rather than by going with, a jack of all trades that might not be doing, that might be superficial on all sides.
That's great.
Yeah, I tend to be an AppSumo fiend.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he said that he knows Social Insider, he's not really surprised because he probably has got every single analytics tool that's ever been created ever.
And what did you get, Loren? An unlimited subscription for it for an in-depth
I stacked the codes on that.
Lifetime subscription for like $2.95 one time.
To be honest, that's why Vrbo was an AppSumo. It was like, this is really great. Let me try it. And I regret not having I don't even know if that, because I've had it for so many years. Back in the day, AppSumo used to have buy it, and that was it. And now they have this code thing going where you can stack codes and stuff. So I don't know if I missed an opportunity to be able to stack and expand my account or not.
No.
But with my account, I have a great deal compared to your pricing model. It's look, I got 5 workspaces, which I guess we should also talk about the difference between workspaces, users, and stuff like that. I have 5 workspaces. I can put 5 users on each workspace, and they can all be different, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And I can do unlimited posting, which is really neat. So, yeah. Anyway, so
that changed. That changed from AppSumo, I have to say.
You got a very good deal. That's what
I got a great deal.
A great deal back then. We were very small back then, so it kind of made sense. Now, the way it works right now is you have users, which is, obviously everyone you need to collaborate with, agency or client, everyone is like a user, everyone who needs to be on the platform with you together. You have a company account, so everyone you invited, so it's not per workspace anymore, it's on the company basis, because we introduced the company level, which we didn't have before. It was just workspaces. Now we have the company concept. So everyone, you can have multiple workspaces in one company account. And what we call a workspace is basically, a brand or a project. It really depends how you structure it. So if you have, maybe you want to, structure it and we might have 2 different brands in your group. So you want to have 2 different workspaces just for the purposes of organizing everything very neatly and, to have everything well separated and to have 2 different calendars, because you're talking maybe about very different things, very different brands. For the agency client relationship, it's more straightforward. You just have 1 workspace for every client. But if you're a brand, you can have, a workspace for, if you're a company, you can have a workspace for different brands.
So I think, the best use case in the hospitality industry is, if you have a chain of hotels, for example, you have the local hotels per country or per, you even have Hilton, for example, that has so many different brands, DoubleTree or, other I'm not that familiar with Hilton, but they're different types of brands. So what you can do is kind of have one workspace for each. You can have individual contributors for each of those brands, and you can also have, like the internal team that is global and handles everything. And what's interesting is that you have a relationship between these workspaces. So if a person has access to multiple workspaces, they can go into like the main brand and duplicate the calendars into their own workspace to kind of like, okay, you have the global brand, but you might want to use those posts in your on your local hotel page or something like that. So that's kind of I think an example of use and hospitality.
I don't know how this is looking on the screen. Let me see how this looks. I'm going to pull up my account just because we're talking around it, and I don't want people to get confused from it. And I don't mind sharing my stuff because, like I said, I'm a fanboy of this thing. So I'm all happy to go over and share a screen for this. This is my workspace board. So if you want to tell me where to poke and push and point out what it is that we can do, I'll be happy to do that. So go ahead.
Yeah. So all of those little rectangles, all of those squares are basically one workspace. So can you explain how you decided, Loren? How did you decide to walk us through the logic of separating them?
Yeah, for me, I handle the marketing for variations of an organization within our industry called Hospitality Sales Marketing Association International. So I created workspaces for each of them, APAC, obviously, for Asian Pacific, EU, and then HSMI for North America. Mine, the HDM, which is mine, I have a lot of my clients in because the joy that you've given me on this is I can add boatload of
so many pages.
Yeah, I can add whatever I want to with it. So this one reflects an organization of 10 hotels in cluster that I have, but different brands. Fortunately, right now they only have a few social platforms on, mainly Facebook and Instagram, and only a few on LinkedIn. So I select which ones I want to cluster to because some of these are geographically connected. So I can put the same posts with different content to multiple hotels with different brands and so forth. So I can cluster things a little bit easier. But this is my list view. This is my feed view, which is just a time sequence one. And that goes to individual ones. And then I have my calendar view, which I love showing to the client. Whoops, I don't have anything going on this week right now. Come on.
There's not much latency given the 2,000 files you have there, Loren.
And then I have grid view. Let's just jump over to grid view, shall we?
The grid view is best for Instagram. So if you could show an Instagram page here.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what we got here. I have nothing going on recently in Instagram. So, here we go. I'll just grab this one. This is an Instagram posting I was doing earlier. So, okay. But, yeah, I forget what I was doing with this. I don't even think these launched. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't push them through on those. Sorry. Because a lot of times I'll put stuff up and then decide not to run it for that time sequence or something. But
so the workspace thing is designed to exactly structure to organize.
We should shut him off.
That's where all the server space is going. We've figured it out.
Now we know where the bandwidth issue is.
I know we asked Loren to explain his logic, so that
was a mistake. There is no logic.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good moment to mention that this is not exactly what we had in mind when we designed workspaces. What we hoped for is a top of 4 or 5 pages per workspace where you can kind of
something like this
organized. Yeah, this is a bit closer to what we had in mind. And yeah, kind of we're trying to make it a bit better for those kinds of use cases. But the idea is that, it obviously becomes, since everything in Planable is so visual, the kind of publishing for so many pages at once isn't necessarily that accessible or fast or efficient.
Yeah. But this is ideal. What you're showing to us right now is ideal. Just having.
This is how it normally is run. And please understand, my other one is I only use those segments of it, but it was a nice catch-all. In other words, I put 10 pounds of something in a 5-pound bag because I can use it at certain segments. So I just made sure I had access to all the accounts.
We're not going to ban you. That's okay.
Please don't shut me up. Please don't shut me up.
The good thing is you've now got a use case. You said you were finding different ways that people.
Yeah, there you go.
You've now got a use case on how not to use it.
This is how I was using the tags. For identifying what it was in particular. And then I'd love to point out the fact, the F5 means I posted on 5 different Facebook places
Mm-hmm.
on the same single time, plus LinkedIn. And these were Facebook 5 plus 1 LinkedIn plus 1 Twitter. And then when you click into it, depending upon what you want, it shows you to this point. It shows that it was approved, shows that it was scheduled on what platform. Here's where you put the drop in the comments and people that can put comments in. This is the mobile version of it. So you can tell if it really, you screwed it, you messed it up or something, So that's what I love about it.
That's a good demo. I love it.
So I have a quick question when we go back to the way things are set up and the pricing and what you get and what you don't get. You've mentioned, I'm looking at your website now, and it says that there's a free trial.
Yeah.
It's always welcome for anybody in the hospitality industry. So you've got a free trial there. It says it's unlimited workspace and unlimited users. It's self-service, but it then says first 50 posts. So I take it you can post 50 times in as many limited workspaces and with as many people as you wanted. And then after that, the trial ends and you're moving to the paid version.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, right. That's how it works.
Good stuff. So it's not actually a time-limited trial like a lot of the trials are out there. It's based on your post. So if I wanted to do one post a week for 50 weeks, I would get a free trial with it.
Yeah,
that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Idea behind that is
one post a year, and you get 50 years.
There you go.
There you go. That's about as much as I go on Facebook personally when I'm not working. So that could work for me. That's fine.
So the idea behind that was kind of we used to have a time-based trial, but then we realized, why limit people on time when we want to, for them to actually understand if it's a good platform for them to use or not, not kind of make them rush into these 14 days. You have to test it out,
Yes,
So,
and we looked into our data. We talked to some of our users, and we tried to realize when are people, figuring out Plannable finally, like what's the point, what's the moment when they're like, oh, I get it, I love it, that actually brings a lot of value to me. I mean, I'm hooked, I want to use it for life, forever. So we asked them, and we realized that it's around 50 posts. That's when the majority of people are like, yeah, I get it, that's pretty cool, I want to keep it up.
Not that it's difficult. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Not that it's difficult to understand. You don't necessarily need 50 posts to get what it does, but you need maybe 50 posts to fall in love with it. So,
yes. Thank you, Miruna.
That makes sense. It's any software, isn't it? When it's new, it's always difficult. It doesn't matter whether it's the simplest thing to use or not, because you've got to understand it, you've got to learn, and you've got to find the use case. And I absolutely agree with you. I hate the time limited ones, especially when it's only 2 or 3 days. It's like, well, what's the point? I am that busy. I might only have a few moments in 2 or 3 days where I can actually give this my undivided attention. So it might be that I can give it a short burst of attention, but very infrequently. So if you limited me to 2 or 3 days, I'm not going to get the benefit of the platform.
Yeah.
Whereas
That's such a great point. That's such a great point, giving people the time to test it on their own schedule. That's exactly what we had in mind. Yes.
Yeah, and I've not seen many software, services such as this, or even not like this, but just software in general, where they're offering that type of trial. It's normally all time sensitive. I'm sure Loren could put me right on that, because you've tried every software ever created ever, and I may be talking out of turn here, but I do like that, and I'll definitely be giving it a go.
I'd also like to ask a question. When you're talking about, and Tris brought this up earlier about the creativity, stagnation, and so forth. There's a platform that I do also use, but for large scale clients that have a really massive amount of input, and there's got a reward system and so forth built in as to whose post actually got the most engagement and so forth. And it has this ability to identify RSS feeds, local hashtag tracking and so forth, and it brings in content. And that content can be decided to be used or not used, or modified, obviously, and then used for that purpose and scheduled, very similar in some circumstances to it. It's called social HP. I don't know whether, do you guys see yourself trying to create some sort of content generator as well, or just strictly stay to, here's the platform that you put your stuff into, you collaborate with, and you distribute with. That's your core, that's your lane. I appreciate it, because I stay in hospitality. I don't try to venture too far out of anything. So we might branch sometimes in the future into different, things, but we want to be, the operational system, the OS
of social media teams and potentially in the future of content marketing teams. So we want to be the platform where you run things. So we don't want to go into like discovery of content or analytics or listening or monitoring or anything else. We're like the platform where you go and you run your stuff and you collaborate and the workflow system. That's what we want to be.
So what does a usual customer look, or a usual user of Planable look like?
Not me.
No, is that an agency? Do you find it's typically agencies that are signing up for you, or is it business owners, social media teams within a business, single people that that've got the responsibility? Give us a bit of an idea on what your customer base looks like, if you don't mind.
Sure. So it's, I would say half of our customer base is agencies, definitely. Mm-hmm. It does make sense. Collaboration is by default a need they have. And then on the other side, we have lots and lots and lots of small businesses that are using us. 3 to 5 people, not all of them social media managers, but 3 to 5 people that are involved in the process of creating content for social, using us. And small businesses are a big chunk of our business. We do also have freelancers, but that I still consider them in the agency side because it's like offering services. Yeah. I'd say agencies and small businesses. Am I correct, Miruna?
Yeah, we have a few enterprises as well, usually that have kind of large social media teams in-house. We have a kind of a small chain of coffee shops in UK actually that is, has this kind of workflow. They have someone doing, helping them with their marketing, and it's a lot about them trying to find that real-time content. They take photos, they go to the locations, they get help from the people in the team that are on site whenever stuff happens, and they get approval usually from the owner or someone else in the team that kind of has the time to look at it. And it's this kind of on the go helps a lot the small teams.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. Well, I've asked all the questions I wanted to ask about how to, and I'm ashamed to fill my account because I think they're going to shut my account off now.
No, that's okay. It's also perfect timing. We gotta run to our next meeting. Busy Fridays. But it was so great to talk with you, everyone, and so really great meeting you. And Tristan, we expect to see you on the platform. We're gonna search for your account.
No problem. No problem at all.
That leaning into the mic kind of made it.
Yeah, that was
threatening.
You will.
Watching it.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. I am scared enough to sign up. That's fine.
Before we get to lose you, we know that we do a podcast as well, and
yes,
where to find that as well.
Yes, so it's called People of Marketing, and every Wednesday I talk to very inspiring marketers in different industries. We've had, people from Lego. We had, marketers from Visa, from very different industries, and we talked to them about their career path and how they got where they are. So if anyone's interested in that topic and wants to learn from, heads of marketing and CMOs and that kind of stuff, we'd love to have you in our audience.
I'll take the link from your LinkedIn because that's where I found it, and I'll put that into the show notes for those people if they want to go and take a look at that as well. I apologize for those. We actually had a few questions coming from Indonesia that most of it was getting answered in our dialogue, so I didn't bring them into the conversation. Pricing, workspaces, and things like this. So we kind of worked through a lot of that, but just know that there was some other people that just I ignored, and I'm sorry for that. The other is that in honor of you, I tried to. By the way, I tried to impress them with my automated Romanian software. Did not work.
So bad.
It sounded Spanish, Italian gibberish. So skip that one. But in honor of, and this is not the same software, different software. We will be closed captioning the replay of the show, and we're going to add Romanian into it. We're going to take
Aw.
Not
We
temporarily.
appreciate it. We appreciate the effort.
So we're going to put Romanian in for our one of our subtitle languages for this week, and if we get the audience that we'll keep it in. I mean, we can do up to 10 languages, 11 total, really, when you include English. So we'll put Romanian in for now.
Yeah.
And
maybe you could tell us how it works.
Romanian, the Romanian language.
Or no, for the translation when Loren does it, when it's automated.
I'm not going to go back because she's probably going to go looking. Please don't ever do that again because it made no sense.
Right. Yeah.
But it is a different software and it is a much more accurate software. This one was the software I tried to do it verbally, audibly, and it didn't sound good. It sounded bad. If they want to get in contact with you or learn more about Planable, where is it that they can go?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way, or on our website, planable.io. So yeah, we're looking forward to connect with everyone that's interested in the tool.
Thank you for the time, and like I said, I have no interest in this platform. We really just thought it was kind of casual, like whatever,
No affiliates, nothing like
that.
that.
Please don't shut my account off when you saw how I'm abusing it. Please don't do that.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Thank you so much, Loren, and it was really great meeting you, Tristan, Dan, Robert. Really nice connecting. Thanks a lot for doing this, and have fun.
Thank you.
Don't hit the stop in the upper right-hand corner button.
No, the stop. I will just shut off the laptop. I will just close the laptop.
Do not hit the red button. Do not hit
Turn off the internet.
You see what I mean about that button, though? When the button's up there, it's like you want to hit it. It's like this glowy little button.
Oh, you do not know how much I've had to resist that. You do not know.
Don't hit the stop button. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Great to meet you.
Robert, Dan, damn, it's amazing that you're here.
It is.
This is like,
and I see there's a small group here, so I'm guessing people somehow figured out I was going to join and decided to.
That's what I was thinking. It was me, so I don't know.
You both can take credit for both of it. It's quite all right.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm not in the cool group because they didn't tell me either. So I just did look like normal,
Well, all I know is when I sent the invitation out, and I was all stoked, as you could tell, that Planable was going to be on. I'm like, and then all of a sudden, like flies, I don't know. Tim was the last one. He says, "Dude, sorry, can't make it." Da da da. And I'm sitting there going, "All right, so I'm going to pull a Jimmy Fallon, just one interview, one review. I'm good. I do that."
I can handle that. Yeah.
So thank you for showing up. Dan surprised the heck out of me.
So Dan, are you in You're in Brooklyn?
I'm in quarantine, so I got nothing else to do here. So
that's why he's with us.
I am. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm dropping my son off at college, but he has to quarantine under the New York regulations. So we're now.
So Robert, not only are you here, but we actually have your list in hand, which
I know.
I'm not trying to bash you or be negative, but there's been some time sequence issues here where it's like, list shows up.
Normally, I don't think I've ever been later than 2 minutes after the show starts.
Is that your story you're sticking with?
And nobody reads it anyway. So
we do. I even used it last week. Did I not, Tris? Back me up, please.
I don't want to get in the middle of this. And Mummy and Daddy are fighting, and I'm just going to go hide in my room.
That's right.
Oh, goodness gracious. So with that in mind, and that we have the author with us, Mr. Robert, please, what would you like to bring to the table today since you brought a whole list of goods?
You see, I aggregate them, and then you guys need to pick what you like. No, I thought the top story I had was basically Sonesta has picked up 103 properties from Intercontinental Hotels because the Service Properties Trust, who's the owner, ran into a little problem because they basically had guarantees from Intercontinental Hotels Group that, okay, we do this, you send us some money, we get it. I'm not sure if it was monthly or quarterly, but IHG, because of COVID, was late on one. It's like, hey guys, you can't be late. And then they missed one again, and they said, we're taking our properties and going home. Now, it's funny on some of the other industry publications. They just, kind of took the press release. But this guy at 1 Mile at a Time, which is the link that I used, had kind of the inside story on it, because Service Properties Trust actually owns about a third of Sonesta. Right. So when they pulled it over, it's like, well, we'll just take it to ourselves. So what they wound up getting were, 3 Intercontinentals, 3 Holiday Inns, 5 Kimptons, 11 Crown Plazas, 20 Staybridge Suites, and 61 Candlewood Suites. So they've got long-term stay properties. They've got Intercontinentals and I mean, that's
not
great.
your generic, single flavor vanilla.
Yeah, no, that's, no generic Holiday Inn. Well, 3 Holiday Inns, not like, you'd say 103. You go, oh, well, how many Holiday Inn Express? They got 70 Holiday Inn Expresses or something like that, just scattered around highways. But pretty impressive little portfolio. And boy, Sonesta made out like a bandit on that. So.
I read the article. Is that a done deal? Is there any legal ramifications of that?
Oh, no, it is done. They missed. Wow. IHG missed.
It does sound very much like, somebody at Service Property Trust have been going, hang on, guys, our contract says we can. Whoa, hang on. Someone just got a big promotion off the back of that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They said they sent termination notices over failure to pay minimum returns and rents due for July and August, which amounts to $26 million plus accrued interest. So it's not,
it's not small.
This is not peanuts. Yeah. Yep. So they're like, hey, this is real. We're taking our stuff and going. And so we'll see. And then last week was Intercontinental and Accor, right? With Accor maybe picking them up. So I'm thinking IHG is having issues. So
1 or 2 or 26.4 million issues to be precise.
Well, and even the properties though. I mean, the Intercontinentals, they've got Austin, Toronto, and San Juan, which are again, great properties, great destination. The Kimptons it's Palomar in DC, Allegro and Palomar in Chicago, Monaco in Portland, and the Alexis in Seattle, which are all great hotels, right? So those are that hurts for. I know IHG has 5,000 or 6,000 hotels, but these are nice ones. These are at least some pretty nice gems in there, plus all those Candlewoods and Staybridges which should be doing great during COVID times because they're long-term stays. So
we've just got a comment in there as well. I don't know if you can balance it, but sorry, Dan.
Sorry, Tristan, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Valyn just put a comment in there saying that most of the properties are extended stay, which is the market that's doing best right now as well. So it's like a double whammy for IHG if they have got financial issues or, which clearly they've got something going on there, that to lose a big chunk of properties that are actually doing pretty well, it's almost like a double hit for them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I got a comment, and I'll say this in generic terms, not just towards IHG, but when brands push their newfound promotion on GDS to secondary markets, you got to wonder why. What kind of good advice is that? It sounded like sponsored advice, because a lot of the brands are saying, "Look, we got a new GDS rollout program." Wait a minute, there's no international travel.
Yeah. Well, GDS is still predominantly corporate. I mean,
right? You got no corporate travel. And that's the point I'm trying to make with this. Like, so you're bringing kind of a swayback horse to a horse race. Don't think it's going to really finish the run.
Well,
how aggressive are you? How adapted are you to what we are dealing with in a market circumstance right now?
It was very interesting. FocusWire had a webinar yesterday, sponsored thing with Sabre, right, and Expedia, and basically Sabre was pushing Expedia, right? I mean, heavily for it, and I'm just kind of looking at it and going, wow. Times have changed here.
Just give my second example, because they did the same thing on the brand side. We have an amazing boost deal that we can do now with our OTA partners, and you want me to ride the horse that I got to pay the most money on?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Seriously. Where's the brand?
So they've. I just took a quick search here. So they have about 80 properties. So they've more than doubled the size of their brand pool.
Wait a minute.
Valyn,
right? Robert, you brought Valyn in. If you weren't here, she wouldn't show up. I tell you that. You are her favorite.
Wow. I thought I was everyone's favorite, Loren.
I don't know that
I
don't know that I go that far, Loren. You just all look so lonely. There's so few of you, and my meeting was over. Like,
and there certainly was not enough ladies after the ladies from Planable left. So it's great to have.
There's a serious lack of intellectual curve, minus, of course. Great to see you. Great to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I was sure I wasn't going to be able to come, but I'm happy to be able to.
Always a joy. So, with we're banging and bashing on brand these days. What do you have to say about that? No.
Well, you saw the comment I put in the list that those Sonesta, the properties that are going to Sonesta, because full disclosure, many of those hotels that were in that group are our customers, and so we're in the middle of working with IHG and Sonesta to do the transition, but there are so many extended stays, both Candlewood and Staybridge, in that group of properties. I mean, that is the big majority of those 103 properties. But there are some nice ones. The Toronto Yorkville is a very nice property. So they use our product.
I know, and those Kimptons are good. The Palomars, and they got a Lexus up in Seattle and stuff. Yeah, they're
Are they going to brand them all as Sonestas, or are they going to come up with a new brand?
I think they're going to be
Sonesta.
Sonesta hasn't. The Sonesta ES brand is the extended stay. So I think I don't know if I guess all the Candlewoods and Staybridges would all go in together into that. I'm not exactly sure.
I mean, those facilities are so, those extended stay buildings are so, they're so typical, right? They're hard to turn into something else.
Yeah.
Until you brought it up, Robert, I didn't really, and it's my bad. I just assumed, and it was bad. That's the worst part of our assumption. It was just Deadwood hotels that had gotten into a mixed complex, a lack of productivity, and the ownership wanted to take them back and redo something.
Oh,
and
no.
What they were, I'm like, oh no, heck no, that's painful. That's a hurt.
Yeah.
Hello,
Madrid.
Yeah, replacing 103 hotels ain't easy.
Oh, you're talking about SVC moving their hotels to Sonesta.
We are.
Right. Well, because SVC owns a third of Sonesta too, so it's a win-win for SVC. So,
well, my team and I were talking about it on Monday because it's crazy. So SVC is 51 of the current 80 Sonestas already. Yeah. So now they're adding 103 to that. I mean, Sonesta is basically SVC. Yeah.
Big
that's gonna hurt Kimpton. Did you look at the Kimptons they're losing?
Oh yeah,
a couple of them are important ones.
Oh yeah, the DC ones and
Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Kimpton has just added 2 new properties just in the last month. So I think so Kimpton has been a brand in transition since IHG took them on. There's been a fair amount of churn in the Kimpton portfolio. The 2 new ones, one's in Bozeman, which looks great.
Bozeman's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like a really swank little hotel. And then they took over an old hotel in the Pittman, which is an old hotel that's been renovated in Pittsburgh, maybe?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the Midwest. Sorry, any of you in the Midwest out there.
But I don't think this is going to be the end of it, as clearly we were talking about it last week as well. This is just the COVID shuffle, isn't it? We've just seen there's going to be more, especially as we get towards the end of the year. And I suppose we're kind of still in vacation or staycation time now, but as we get into the wrong type of months for certain markets, I think you're just going to see more and more. And we don't even know the full global impact of what's going to happen there. You're going to see outside of the USA, you're going to see all sorts of stuff happening.
Yeah,
I'm going to put in the show notes the term COVID shuffle. You heard it here first. The term COVID shuffle.
Well, but you look at the basically occupancy is now plateauing and starting to go down because everybody was very excited, like around week 30 of the year here, and hey, everything's great. Well, that's always the peak week for the industry. So it's like, okay, and it's going to drop, and without corporate to fill and group to fill, it's gonna get
a tough winter.
Winter is coming.
Winter is coming indeed. Yeah,
It sounds better when you say it.
We're hearing from some of our customers where their properties in the States mostly haven't reopened, and we're starting to hear that they're not going to for 2020 because the peak times they believe have passed or are passing. And so there's no point in opening for a really what looks to be a really, especially, the sort of 4-star upscale properties, what looks to be almost a no demand winter. Why even bother?
Right.
I have a question that came up in a dialogue with a group out of Schenectady. And, you have the seasonal places in the Northeast that close during winter. Okay. And a lot of them are very nice. And they just simply close because there's just not there was never the need nor the demand or whatever. Do you think that might be a shift that they might say, let's see what we can get? And if we just put the effort into staying open and go into the winter season for people?
It depends on where they are, what they're doing. I mean, they might be able to extend deeper into the season, into the shoulder or something like that. But
at a resort in upstate New York, Mohonk, I think it is.
They did a really cool presentation on how to change your off season into something meaningful.
I mean, they're doing. People want to escape New York. They drive up there, and I think normally the winter season is dead for them. They're seeing good pickup, so I think there may be something to it, depending on where you're located.
Right. I think that's it, because in Maine, for example, we're going up to Maine in a couple of weeks, and like we're hearing from the tourism, which I talked to the tourism people last week, and there's a lot of stuff that'll shut down as usual because it's Maine, right? So, and it's too far away, for example, for New Yorkers or people from New Jersey to get to. And out the Cape, so out in Provincetown, which is out at the tip of Cape Cod, they're also going to be closing as usual.
Really?
Only because down closer in, towards the elbow of the Cape, right here, Dennis. Dennis and the part of the Cape that's closer to the mainland, as it were, they'll stay open longer because I have a friend who runs IT for the Chatham Bars Inn, which is in Dennis, and they're going to stay open longer than usual because they just see the demand. But she expects they'll close at some point, maybe later.
And it's more than just the properties staying open as well. It's the the additional services, the attractions, everything else that's going on around there. Because if they're not going to stay open, or they're not going to be geared up to it, and you're going to have people turning up to go to a hotel and have nothing to do. That we're not naive here. We don't just go on vacation to go and see a nice hotel and stay in the hotel all the time. You want to go out and venture out typically, and I live in a location in the UK that I personally think is very similar to sort of like Maine. It's a very seasonal holiday destination. We've got mountains, we've got beautiful scenery, amazing lakes. It's absolutely fantastic.
Is that why you sound Scottish?
Oh, you had to go there, didn't you? Yeah, you had to go there. Yes,
I was just curious.
See, I was just going to go and say that what Valyn was talking about was close to the little place where we threw tea in the water, but I didn't even do that. I didn't even go that way, But Chris shows up. He's been here. He's been having a good. Don't have to push him too hard. I already said he was from New Guinea, like our other friend.
I just need to make sure proper crap is given to everyone.
We got to set the bar, Ed.
Dan, with Dan in Brooklyn, the world's upside down.
It is. And Robert on the show again after 5 minutes?
Tristan, I thought you were South African.
I thought he was Australian.
No idea. No, come on. I don't work for another company. I don't work for fuel. So let's.
And so the rumors begin.
Indeed. Is it Pick on Brit Day? I mean, come on.
It's
every day. And the reason being is America.
If only we'd have took you seriously and sent a few more troops over. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, but sort of George III was your Donald Trump, right? So.
No, I actually think Boris is at the moment. I think he's
Boris is hanging in there. Yeah.
Did you see? So this is I don't know. I'll send it to all of you afterwards. But Tristan might have seen it. The little speech Boris gave to the kids at the school.
Oh no, I've missed this.
Man, he made no sense whatsoever. Like, and they
that's any speech he makes.
And they showed, but what was great is they showed the kids' faces, and these were kids at a school, all in their uniforms, and they were looking like this.
What the? Is this guy in charge of the country?
Yeah, exactly.
How soon can they vote? How soon can they vote?
I've said it before, and I'll definitely say it again. But Boris is genuinely something that you normally keep hidden in the attic. And how he's running the country, I have no idea.
Kind of the crazy uncle, sort of thing.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you know that.
So I want to throw in something that's near and dear to my heart, because tomorrow, literally, Renee and I are packing up and we're driving up to Treasure Island, and we picked up a Vrbo, and we're going to spend a few days on the beach. Mm-hmm. And I am a hotelier through and through, and I very rarely have used Airbnb, Vrbo for anything.
Vrbo.
Well, Vrbo, whatever, me in names. And it's weird because you have an article, Robert, I'm going to drop it in. Why? Because I totally, I've had brought this up on the show before. I totally misjudged. I thought really Airbnb and Vrbo and vacation travel were really going to be crunched down with this. How can you compete with?
We had that conversation with Chip and Cecil and Bob in March, saying you have this huge opportunity, don't blow it.
Right. And here we blew it.
Yep. We're using cleaning products. Yeah. We've decided to start cleaning the rooms. Yeah.
Yeah. The Lysol stuff cracks me up, because if you read the side of a Lysol can, the 0.01% it doesn't kill is coronavirus.
But then we shoot ourselves in the foot because we don't have any messaging that's consistent, or we say we do this, but then we have all the evidence in the world that we don't.
Well, people who listen to us do.
Right. And then the brands have shut it dark where you can't even control the message. So the hotels can't even reflect what they're doing individually unless they get out from underneath the brand conversation and go lateral into social, which is their only venue to really say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to show it to you. Don't just trust the fact the brand's saying it and blaming them for that it doesn't happen.
I don't think I was on the show. I was doing these things for Focusrite, these kind of like market overviews, market by market. We did Key West, and the Marriott Key West, you went onto their website, right? And they're selling rooms, right? They've got rooms for sale, and you can get a moderate or deluxe or all this sort of stuff. And there's a little thing at the top that says, link here for coronavirus, just kind of a general blurb. And you click on it, and you get a list of like the states. It's not for Key West or anything like that. Well, at that time, they had a barricade up at, I can't remember, whatever. Yeah, at the
marker 113.
Yeah,
you couldn't get to the
Keys. 113. Yeah, you're out there, and I mean, you're 200 miles away from the hotel, right? You aren't even close, and so I looked at it and thought, wait a second, they can't be open. How are they? How are you guys doing this? And he's like, and I'm talking to the hotel, and they're blaming the OTAs. Oh, the OTAs keep opening us up and selling us, and we have people who are pissed off, and it's like, it's not the OTAs, it's Marriott.com who's giving that to them. And
maybe the hotel considers them an OTA.
Yeah. But it was great. It was so generic and everywhere around
Loren and I had a
Marriott Marquis in New York opened no food and beverage outlets, no notation.
Yeah.
Nothing. You know why the Key West. You know why the Key West rooms are so clean now, because no one can actually get to them. That was it. They didn't need to clean. There was no cleaning policy because nobody stayed in the rooms.
Loren and I presented to Montreal and Quebec HSMAI, where we were talking about this exact thing. Robert, you're kind of poking at even the very basics, where we were actually talking about not just, hey, here's what we're doing to keep you safe, and here's what's expected of you, but also talking about what is there to do, why even come, and are things different? What's the reason to go? And we actually went and dug in pretty deep to one hotel, one of Loren's hotels, that does it really well. does a really good job of keeping kind of this stream of, here are the things that are open, here's like what's different about them, like really just well done. So, hopefully at least now Quebec and Montreal will start doing that. And now once Loren and I kind of get through the rest of every single other chapter, maybe at one point North America we'll be doing it. We haven't talked to Marriott yet, so I mean I give them a pass.
I mean, part of it is food and beverage, right? So if you're staying in a hotel that doesn't have any outlets open and you're in a location, maybe it's a downtown location where there's nothing around, without a fridge in the room, why would you do that?
Right. It's called prison.
Yeah.
We call that's where Dan is right now. So we recently spent 2 nights in a hotel out in Western Massachusetts, and I called the hotel and said, do you have a fridge in the room? And they said, we do now. Thumbs up, right? Great, that's the right answer. But we're going also, we, like Loren, when we go to Maine in a couple of weeks, we've rented a house for 2 weeks. So
are you going to like Arcadia or?
No, we've rented 2 houses, one each for 2 weeks. And we're going down Pemaquid Point, so down some of the peninsulas that are south of Arcadia.
Yeah.
So we'll stay a week at one house, and then we rented another house. We would have stayed at the same house for 2 weeks, but we couldn't find it. It's very interesting. There's a lot of supply up there is closed. So a lot of the vacation rental supply in Maine didn't even open up.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So there were a lot of people who couldn't figure out how to manage their VRBO listing. And so instead of sort of taking the house off, you would click through to it and it would say, there would be a note from the owner saying, we can't figure out how to take our house off, but we're closed.
That's probably a new Xenia enhancement to it, where they can't unlist themselves.
Yeah, either that or maybe VRBO charges the owners to take them off.
I got to say with VRBO, I preferred. We did actually. Renee did this. We went around VRBO and contacted the property management group that was running this particular property because VRBO's cancellation policy sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, and the service fees, like the online booking fees, are really steep.
Yeah, 50% deposit loss for no reason, no obligation. You can't. You could have the building burned down, and you still got to pay.
Yep.
Right.
It's amazing the qualifiers for all of that, and so it's actually beneficial if you can find out who's actually running the property, or you can talk to the property owner itself directly because they'll work out a deal for you, or they'll whatever have you to it. But and I'm not just saying that don't take advantage, don't exploit this opportunity. Now, VRBO, and I mean, this has come from a hotel's perspective. You really want to do better business, be a little bit more tolerant of flexibilities.
I was just
the only thing you should do when people are hurting is be intolerant.
Yeah.
I was just really surprised at how much supply was offline. I mean, but it is Maine, right? So it is the far end of the U.S.
Yeah, but you're in foliage right now, so. Right, next couple of weeks.
No, it's a little early. So
you've also got a mixture of issues there of people who've perhaps gone and bought these as an investment, and then when the money dries up, with COVID, people aren't going. I'm thinking certainly that's what happened over here in the UK. You've got people who are left with. Like Airbnb, where they've got lots of Airbnb properties, and they're left with it. They've still got mortgages to pay on these because they bought them that way. It's left them in trouble. So it's not necessarily that they've chose not to open up again. It's some of them are actually these are businesses, not just like me renting out a room, or even if it's just me doing the whole.
I gotta go. Him was all being stoic. He's just waiting for his time.
I had to ask Loren if my mic was on because
it wasn't.
I just couldn't figure out how to get into this conversation. So this is my new message.
Yeah, Ben puts his hand up now. That's what Ben does when he's on. He actually puts his hand up.
Since I've been on these calls, so I gotta.
You got to sharpen those elbows.
Just a quick point, and I'll go back into my corner.
I'm dying to talk over you now, Dan. So no, go on, Dan.
You would think of the New Yorker, and maybe it's the Hawaii in me now that I'd be able to interrupt a little bit better. But now that I'm in Brooklyn, maybe I should work on that. But one of the things I think that might be going on with the Airbnbs and the VRBOs doing well now is listening to an interesting interview with Brian Chesky, and he was talking about how now you're going to see this movement to these staycations or local places that you can drive to that don't necessarily have a lot of hotel inventory. So where the New York Airbnb is dying, the Poconos and the Catskills are doing great.
Right.
So they're seeing a shift in where their business is going. So it's not necessarily that we did things wrong, which we did, but where we have our inventory, it might not be where the demand is now.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, because we were out at the Berkshires when we were out in Western Mass, and there was a lot of Airbnb, VRBO inventory, but also all the hotels were open. So I think there was just demand for all types of accommodations out there where, sort of like the hotels, there are a lot of New York City hotels, for example, that aren't open, just like Airbnb isn't doing big business in city centers either, right? Because there's just not much in the way of demand for those locations right now.
Well, I mean, just a little bit reflect on what we're doing we picked it because of the density that hotels represent, running across people in elevators, hallways, common areas. We didn't want that.
Right.
We wanted to be able to go to a place that we could keep separate, that had a kitchen, that we could do our own cooking. Not that we don't want to enjoy local food or anything. We're just going to get picked up or delivered. We're not going to go out. We're at that next level of, it has to be this safe for us. I mean, we're not I don't care, this is a hoax, the earth is flat and I'm going to go out and do whatever I want to, people. I'm when we go in, we're going to pull the linen and wash it because we want to make sure there's a washer and dryer. We're going to wash the linen before we even use it. We're going to wipe things down before we use them. And then once they're done, we know they're going to be there for a few days. We don't have to keep doing that. But I'm just saying we're going to do our own cleaning and process because we want to be that much more safe. If we're going to do this for 3 or 4 or 5 days someplace, we want to make sure that we've done extra precautions as well. So I think there's some of us like that are going into the market now. And these destinations, as you say, are better choices for us. We're not looking for the engagement of a downtown area. We're looking for getting away from where we are to a place that would be fun to be at. And in this case, a beach for us. So,
I think what would be really interesting on that, Loren, you mentioned about you've picked a VRBO because obviously it's got the extra facilities, you can cook in internally, not that you didn't want to go with a local restaurant and eat out. I think a lot of it is, what I found quite interesting is the different takes between the US and the UK. So we've obviously realized that, staycation is going to happen. Chances are that there's not going to be as many people leaving the country, but we've still got people on lockdown in their own homes and going to do this. So in order to kickstart the hospitality, the F&B side of the hospitality industry, we created the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, which it's only run for the month of August. But basically they give a 50% discount on food and non-alcoholic drinks, up to a maximum of £10 per head. On a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday midweek. So the idea is that to try and promote the F&B, and also, if you're going away. What I found really interesting is I've actually dined out a couple of times midweek with big, not big family get-togethers, but with a couple of family members and things like that. And I've been surprised at just how busy the restaurants have been on a Monday evening or a Tuesday evening. And this has really, really worked. And I wonder how much that would actually help America, help the USA, especially in these sort of destinations where you're going. I wonder if that would ultimately help out. But then again, given the amount of debt that's probably going to be racked up here, the government picking up that tab, we're going to pay for it. Well, in fact, I'm not. My kids are going to pay for it. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you guys get a the government's paying for like what, 10 pounds of a meal on certain days of the week.
Yeah, that's the eat out to help out scheme. Yeah, so it's up to £10 per person,
right?
And it's 50% of your meal, which actually I didn't realise was not alcoholic drinks until the first time I went. Second time, didn't make that mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you guys have a more consistent perspective of safety with masks and things like that, right? It's more even keel across the country, or is it regional as to people blowing it off versus people taking it serious? How does that look for England in particular?
England, it's definitely country based. So Scotland are operating with slightly different rules, as is Wales and Ireland. The rules have been brought in consistently across the UK. We're kind of mirroring each other, but just slightly off in terms of when things are happening. So, for example, schools are going back in September. and Scotland came out and said all school children are going to have to wear masks in communal areas. Right. Literally within about 48 hours later, Boris comes out and says, we're going to do the same. Yes, we'll make it mandatory. Yeah. And so that's a terrible Boris impression, but there we go. So now England is having that. So school children, when they're walking in corridors, going between that, not actually in the class, but when they're on site, and particularly where space is a bit narrow and lots of people having to travel through, we're going to have to wear masks, and that will be enforced. That's going to be because
we have places for us. I think for it to work well would be like taking the example of the Keys that we were talking about earlier. Down there, masks are mandatory. And yet you walk over to Miami and not even close.
No, there's no standardization in the U.S.
Yeah, and so making
the White House lawn, you don't need it there.
So that down.
I'm sorry.
The White House lawn, you don't need it either.
Oh no!
Oh no!
You can hug and kiss and everything else. It's a magical place.
COVID knows not to go on to the White House. It's an intelligent book. It really is.
Yes, very much so.
No. In Texas, the brilliant move by the governor at the beginning of the pandemic was it is not the state's role to tell any of these cities what they should be doing. That is a local decision. They will make their own. So, of course, in Dallas, they were very kind of strict. They have a judge who's the highest ranking elected official. He's a Democrat, doing everything right. Right next door, and where there's Plano and Loren, up in your old neck of the woods.
Alan.
Alan. The county, the top-ranking county person there decided that every business was an essential business and that there weren't going to be masks or anything like that, right? And I mean, it's like, people are driving down this highway and going back. This is not going to work out well, right? Mm-hmm. So then it moves on and, things start happening, and they want to start opening up, right? Because there's pressure from Trump to open up. The governor reacts to that. He's a Republican, and he basically makes an executive order that says you will open up and you will do these things, and no local jurisdiction can have more strict requirements like wearing a mask or anything versus what the governor has declared as an edict. And you're like, 45 days ago, I think you were on the opposite end, the just complete 180.
That's very much like our politics is. You can do what you want until it disagrees with what I want you to do. And then now you need to do what I want you to do. Yeah, it works out that
and
well.
It's great. And then you saw what happened in Texas. I mean, just through the roof, where the governor did finally have to capitulate to some reason and keep people from dying, but we're still having 200 people die a day.
And that brings to a point on some of the stuff that we are talking about is this false starting that has happened has put some companies in very serious jeopardy of not being able to restart again.
Oh yeah,
they kind of spend a good amount of money to try to restart. That failed. They got shut down. And now we're faced with trying to restart again. And there's a lot of hotels we're noticing. We're beginning to see a growing obituary list of companies, hotels that are just, we tried and it didn't work and we don't have anything left and nothing's coming over the horizon to help us with this. We can't. There's no restart now.
Look at what the airline industry is doing. Obviously, much more consolidated than the hotels. You got American going, hey guys, the money runs out in October. We got 19,000 people who are going to get furloughed. You don't want that to happen. We need our beaks wet again. And United took a slightly different approach. That was American with 19,000 everybody. United goes, we have 2,700 pilots who are going to lose their jobs, right? And so it's going to get interesting.
It's quite interesting you say that as well, Robert, because there's a local business forum that I go to here in my hometown, and we actually had our local MP who came and actually spoke to us for a brief period. Normally I'm quite critical of him, but he actually spoke quite a lot of sense. At one point he was leader of one of the opposition parties in the UK. And so to actually listen to him and get some insights from him was quite interesting. And he took an approach here that was saying, it doesn't matter what we do here in the UK and probably elsewhere in other countries. We're going to pay as a government and as a nation, one way or another.
Right.
We either extend furlough and help people and foot the bill for that, or we're going to end up picking it up in unemployment. And so whether there's going to be benefits there, or whether, or just general job loss, one way or another, we're going to pay. So why don't we actually try and be a little bit more proactive, keep the furlough going a lot longer? That means that businesses can still actually survive, that if we can weather this storm, there's going to be something to go back to. Whereas if we just say, no, it's ended and everybody's unemployed, there isn't going to be any more businesses. There's not going to be any more hotels, or there's going to be a lot less hotels to be able to go back. And I thought that was incredibly insightful, just actually looking at the problem and saying, well, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. But let's go with the lesser of the two evils. But listening to the politics that then go on above all of that, it's just crazy.
Oh yeah, and the politics are what's screwing it up. I mean, because everybody's pretty much. I mean, you go. McKinsey is not the most liberal group that I've run into. They're pretty conservative folks. They're saying you've got to deal with the health, the public health situation first, or you can't fix the economy. The economy is the output, right? The input is doing all these things of what are you doing to keep people safe and give consumers confidence that, they can do this, and will they have disposable income, and all those reassurances. And then the economy gets going when everybody feels, okay, we can do this, instead of just, damn it, turn on the economy. And it's like, that's not how it goes. So.
Okay,
actually, just one last thing on the airlines. Sure. Bob Crandall, right, former chairman of American Airlines, his prediction in the Wall Street Journal that post-COVID business travel will be off. This is like a permanent reset, a third to half.
Forever.
Right. Yep.
Well, now there's a new tourist attraction in Arizona, the expanded airplane graveyard.
Oh man, yeah, let me tell you.
Okay, so I thought you put this one in for Tris or Ben, should they show up. And that is the ever helpful, ever participating, ever committed, ever supportive OTAs in the UK market.
Oh, yes. I did. That was
just in a nutshell, something directly about the fact that the
silent OTAs.
Yeah, they have been noticeably silent in your space. Or I'm sorry, you're from South Africa. We shouldn't have.
Wait, I thought he was from New Caledonia. What? No, sorry.
Yeah, indeed. That doesn't surprise me, because I don't think there is. I don't think there's much of an appetite for the OTAs over here with the UK market as there is perhaps in other areas. Which I'm surprised at, because, certainly a lot of people that I'm speaking to are doing the whole staycation thing. So we are seeing a great deal more. I don't get why the OTAs are not jumping all over that here in the UK like they have been in other areas. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's, do they have British people in Booking.com that are running it? Maybe we're just being more British about it. I don't know. Stiff upper lip. Don't worry, everyone will sort it out together. More Steve,
Hey, and since we do have the rare pleasure of Dan being with us, how is Hawaii doing with all the restrictions that they had, the closures that they had, some quarantines? One of the very few things that made it out in news, and this goes back a few weeks, obviously, was that somebody actually did get fined because they ignored the quarantine. And they did get that $5,000 fine or whatever it was because they're out and about. I mean, how's things?
Nothing does good for tourism like having your tourists in mugshots.
Yeah.
It's not a good vacation.
Look at Ibiza. Ibiza does that all the time. That's their travel card. Come to Ibiza, get a mugshot.
We're giving you have a choice of the orange or the striped kind of beach pullover type. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that Hawaii. Just yesterday, Hawaii went into lockdown again.
Right.
So we were in lockdown for a few weeks, and we had 1 or 2 cases a day, and that was it. And then we opened up, and everybody went back to the beach and had their baby luau's and got together, and then we saw an explosion of cases. Yeah. So they're back in lockdown. We've been on a 14-day quarantine now since essentially March, so almost 6 months or however many months it is now. that we've essentially had no tourists. We've gone from 30,000 tourists a day to a few hundred, maybe, and those ones we're just putting in jail. It's not good. It's not good. I mean,
how many hotels are closed completely though? Like, is the Hilton Hawaiian Village?
I believe Hilton Hawaiian Village.
I think it's still closed. Like, I don't know about Wackaloa. All these 3,000.
80% of the hotels are closed. The few that are open are operating, at very low occupancies, with essentially only local visitors, which we call kama'aina. Or with essential workers or quarantine or things like that, but military. But yeah, it is a mess, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure how these guys are going to be servicing their debt. And
even Disney with Ailani, when they closed, they said we don't have an opening date, and they just never even set one. Right? It was just like, and you think Disney, okay, well, they're doing, Disney World's open, and they didn't do California and stuff like that, but you'd think they'd be trying to maybe do something. They're just like, screw it, right? It's shut down. So
initially they were going to do a negative test allows you not to quarantine.
They're going to try to do bubbles, right?
Right. So they stopped that. So you have to quarantine. So essentially it blocks off travel. Now they're talking about resort bubbles if you stay on the resort potentially. But I mean, the hope was that they would have these negative tests coming in, which makes sense. You have negative tests, you don't have to quarantine, and then you'd start to prime the pump a little bit, right? Learn about what works, what doesn't work, and sort of just slowly. You're not going to see a huge flow of people, right? And now it starts moving.
Really good contact tracing, everything like that. Yeah, and then you can start ramping up gradually.
Yeah. So Dan, you're in New York now.
Yes.
And you're quarantining. You and your son are quarantining. Yeah.
Correct.
And is that because we go to Maine in a couple of weeks. We're from the state of Massachusetts, and Maine doesn't like Massachusetts, so we as Massachusetts residents have to go to Maine and quarantine for 14 days, or if we have a negative COVID test and the test is no older than 72 hours, that's our sort of get out of quarantine free card. Did New York offer anything like that?
New York does not have that. Hawaii doesn't have that. So you're required for the 14 days, which makes absolutely no sense.
Some of the quick tests, the reliability is not good.
So we're doing the test at our local hospital. So basically our primary care physicians gave us a prescription, which allowed us to get into the hospital, which is it's a 24-hour return, but it depends.
Really?
Yeah, but it could be as long as 48 hours just because of volume, right? But
that's good. That's 48 hours is good.
Yeah, and that's the only way that allows us to do this, right? Because otherwise, if we hadn't found a way to do it, we could have lied, right? Because it's self-certification, so there's a form you have to download from the main website, and then you basically are self-certifying, right? But you have to provide it if you get stopped for any reason. But you don't have to I don't have to hand it in as I go over the border, but yeah, so Dan, you've got to quarantine for 14 days in New York, and then when you go back to Hawaii, you've got to quarantine for another 14 days.
That's correct.
Wow.
So a question about Airbnb was always a point in Hawaii because of the diminished local inventory, because of the demand for Airbnb and so forth. Has it gone up or down because of this self-quarantine requirement? Because obviously a hotel with a room without food, even if it's delivered, is still a jail, as compared to a place that has facilities that you can stay 14 days before staying longer, hopefully. Has it changed the spectrum for Airbnb within the market itself?
Yeah, a lot of counties have actually stopped vacation rentals. So Maui and Kauai stopped it. I think Honolulu still allows it, but you just have so few people coming in, and the ones that are coming in are usually breaking quarantine. So.
Well, 5,000 is nothing compared to the American who went up to Canada and apparently is facing a $500,000 fine.
My God, what was he? Patient zero for Canada.
So the Canadians are serious. So apparently he just went up there, right? I don't know his whole story, but he went up there, checked in, didn't declare, didn't take a test, didn't quarantine. So they gave him one ticket. And then the hotel where he was staying knew that he was out and about. So the hotel called a tip line and it basically blew the whistle on the guy. So they arrested him again. And and apparently he can face up to a $500,000 fine because he didn't leave the first time.
I can tell you from actually, it's a business model for us right now for the hotel I have up in Vancouver as a client. They're very serious about their certification program. I mean, fortunately for us, the hotel, why we went for these is the people that do have to quarantine for essential services and travel and so forth, they come in and we're all suites so they can stay for 14 days. But the hotel is connected to the verification process. Right. They verify that person is not leaving their room. There are times that they are allowed out if they need to smoke or go out, they just want to get outside. There's an area that they go to, and the hotel monitors and certifies that person fulfilled the quarantine requirement of staying within their room. We have certain floors that is on, and that's what they monitor. We monitor the elevator usage. We monitor the stair usage. There's cameras on. It's amazing, but it's a business model that's been productive because we keep occupancy in there. But they're serious. They look for license plates on cars. They look for. I mean, they don't want us there.
Right. Well, they don't want us bringing in the virus, right? So this guy was apparently just like, I don't know, he thought he was going to Texas or something, right? So he just treated it like he was going somewhere else in the States.
So that's it.
He was the lieutenant governor of Texas because he loves, was just saying, let the old people die. We were good. Whatever starts business.
It is what it is, right?
Well, the Canadians, it's a smart country up there. They figured out they didn't need to actually build a wall to keep out America. They just fine you for $500,000. No one's ever going to know. Robert, if you're talking, we've lost all sound, Robert. If you're talking,
no. Well, Robert has gone silent for us.
Have you seen
Robert? He can't defend himself.
Dan, do you want to say something? Now's the time.
Dan, here's your chance.
Hotels that Loren was talking about in Canada, where they watch you, about the hotels in New York where they're quarantining the homeless. They just let you go out in order to get your heroin fix and harass people, and then you have to go right back in.
No. Is that wait, are you speaking from experience, Dan?
Reading the news. You have to go out for a couple of minutes now. But,
you got a long sleeve shirt on, right? You got a long sleeve shirt on, don't you, Dan?
Yeah. I did remarkable because from the impact of marketing perspective, literally, it's a multifaceted what targets we are doing and what contingencies if that market turns into a hotspot and whether we want the business from there. We have our feeder market cycles, which are all off whack right now anyway. We're going into a fall season. I mean, I know that when Ed asked you about the leaf season, it's like, no, it goes to the Tennessee Valley first, works its way up. You're on the latter side of the peeping season. You're not the early side of it. But all said and same, right now, there's a lot of interest in doing that drive travel, but isolated. Some of the hotels that are in the belt that I know about and deal with, they're not getting the demand cycle. But sure as heck, the Airbnb and vacation rental market in that area is doing very well.
Well, the leaf peepers so it's actually the other way around. So it starts first up here and works its way south.
Sorry. You're absolutely right. Oh, gosh, I'm trying to be smart, and it's absolutely the opposite. Right.
But actually, the leaf peeping market up here is huge up here in New England, but it's bus driven. So you cannot like locals, like I would never go up to Vermont on an October weekend or a late September weekend because it's just a congestion of coaches, right? It's just big buses full of tourists. Mostly not American, although some, but a lot of people from overseas who want to see, the New England fall. So yeah, I mean, locals would never go up there on a weekend, but those people aren't going to be here, right? You can't get in a coach, right? Even with masks on, you're not going to sit. Nobody smart is going to sit in a bus for 6 hours driving through whatever with people all around you. So there's not going to be much in the way of leaf peeping or fall foliage season up here anyway. Down there it might be more. In the South it might be different. I mean, having grown up there, you used to just get in your car and go, ride up to the Smokies and, see what you could see, or even North Georgia, where I'm from, you could just, you just get in your car and go up there. I don't know if maybe since then it's turned into something bigger.
No, it ends to a lot of trends that I didn't expect, and actually would have said opposite thereof. Like auto sales are up. I would have thought with unemployment figures and uncertainty of finances that people will be less likely to get vehicles. But what they're saying is that a lot of people that have never had cars that have been from metro areas and so forth, they're actually getting cars, used or new, to be able to drive and go places in their safety of them being in their own vehicle in some senses. And then also down here, our housing market prices are going up. And
right. And that's because people are leaving city centers. So there was an article in the Time, it was somewhere these last couple of weeks, about how rents are dropping in New York City and San Francisco, right? Which has not happened ever. Yeah. And it's because people are leaving. They're leaving the metropolitan areas.
We've seen something similar over here. Sorry, Loren. We've seen
no, please go ahead.
Over here in the UK, and I imagine it's probably the similar in the US as well. Because I'm just selling a house right now. As soon as lockdown was kind of lifted, we went and put our house on the market, and I was just surprised at just how buoyant the house market has been. Even though from a mortgages point of view and the lenders that are out there, they're not really giving fantastic deals at the moment. You need a much bigger deposit than you would have done, only 4 or 5 months ago. But the house market is going absolutely crazy. And I think when speaking to the realtors over here in the UK, obviously estate agents as we call them, they were saying what they're surmising is people have been stuck indoors in lockdown for such a long period of time. They suddenly realised, actually, this house isn't the right house for me anymore. So I want a bigger garden, or I want to move to the country, or whatever I want to do. So we're seeing a huge turnover in sales of properties. And one other point you mentioned about car sales as well. We actually work with a car rental firm, and they're a global car rental firm. And there's certain countries is what's quite interesting. We're seeing pockets of like boom car rentals. Again, it's the staycation. Normally, I'd be jumping in a big steel tin cannon flying off to somewhere else. Can't do that anymore. The car that I've got outside, do I really want to be sticking a couple of 1,000 miles on my own vehicle when for the price of what I was going to pay for my holiday in an airplane, I can get a bigger vehicle, put mileage on somebody else's vehicle, probably a few more mod cons in there, preferably shielded glass for the kids so I can't hear them behind me, all of that type of thing. So just to see these little booms that are coming up that are flip side of hospitality.
Yeah.
Of COVID-19.
Yeah, we live in the suburbs of Boston, and I've had over the last 3 weeks, I guess, I've had 3 real estate agents call me unsolicited, asking if we were interested in putting our house on the market. Wow. I mean, no, thanks for asking. I mean, we do have so my husband and I came up with a number, right? So if somebody calls up and offers us that number, sure.
That's a moving number, yeah.
Right.
What platform did that? I think it was Zillow or something. It's the Make Me Move number or something like that.
That's right.
If you give me that number, sure, you can buy the house for it. But, like over here, we're looking at houses just because, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but the market value prices are going up because we're finding a lot of people from the East Coast and from Tampa, St. Petersburg are like, I don't have to stay here to work anymore. Yeah. I can be someplace else that's a lot more comfortable. I can get a larger house, better price, And we happen to be that market for a lot of the Florida market right now. It's coming down here. So we have that, but we have a lot of friends that are in retirement age down here. And one of our dear friends is actually putting a pool in where they had never thought about putting a pool in before. Why? Because they feel themselves at high risk. They used to go out a lot, like they have an RV, they have a boat, and so forth and so on. But in order to really enjoy them, you're around other people at points. So their travel has been greatly reduced, and they're more at home now than they ever have been. And they're like, screw it, let's just make this place better and let's enjoy it more. And right now, pool sales down here are on a massive wait list to get put in. And there's no discounting, or if you buy now and stuff, it's like, here's the price. If this is what you want, boom, it's done. Because people are doing it the same thing. They're saying, if I'm going to be at home, it's going to be a home. It's going to be whatever we can make it to be.
And we've found as well, there's been people, and I forget whether it was mentioned on this show or whether I've seen it somewhere else, but they're saying that, no, in fact, it was in the group, the business group that I mentioned earlier on. People are having domestic work done, so like new kitchens and various other things. They're surmising that the money that was meant to be the vacation money that we'd be spending on air flight and all the rest of it. Okay, let's renovate the house. Let's do this. Let's do the other. So putting a pool in doesn't surprise me, because we were thinking about doing the same. We were going to put a pool in, but for 50% of the year it's going to be an ice skating rink because it's that cold. And then the other 50% of the year it's probably still going to be too cold to use it, so we decided against it. But that's just the UK. We wouldn't need to put water in. It just rains that much; it'd fill up.
Well, that was actually a little bit of our logic of doing this rental that we're doing over the weekend and into next week. Is I had business travel. I don't know. All of you probably had the same thing. You probably had a half a dozen or more travel cancellations of what we were going to be doing, and some of those were going to be combined with bringing my wife with me, and we go spend a few extra days and so forth at some nice places. Well, all that money got parked, obviously, and so we're looking at like whatever. We weren't even price sensitive. We're like, this is what we want. It's about whether it has what we want. Does it have the things? It really wasn't a price sensitivity issue, which mindfully hoteliers should be looking at, is if they can answer that stuff correctly and put into context what people can do around them and what's available for them and so forth, then they can optimize on the fact that their people are wanting to make a trip if they feel that the safety thresholds that are to them are met.
So speaking, you go, Dan. You first.
Thank you. It's interesting. This is much nicer than the usual elbows, huh? Interesting. I was having a conversation with a client on the same thing, that it's not a rate issue really now. It's about ensuring them that they're going to be safe, that their booking is flexible, that that there are things to do that that just make them comfortable. In their decision to book there, as opposed to playing it as a rate game. So it's just interesting how you might think the opposite, but it's really all about delivering. It's not only about delivering the message, it's also about operationally delivering it once the person gets there.
Right.
And the thing we've seen at Nor1 is that our numbers of people, so guests, so we track, of course, loads of data. So we look at sort of some primary data points. So one of them is demand, right? So click through on the call to action, on the upsell call to action, and then conversion. How many, once the guest clicks through, how many times do they actually request an upgrade? And what we're seeing is that the demand is actually higher now than it was in January, February, or even the same time last year. And our theory, so the demand rate is higher, and for this, basically the same product type. So we also look at offer types, right? So what are guests asking for? It's still primarily configured room upgrades, from the standard king to the deluxe king as an example. But our theory is that guests are paying lower rates, right? They're just booking at lower rates because rates are just lower than they were this time last year. But that also they want what they want, right? So they want to feel safe, they want to feel comfortable. So if they feel comfortable with a bigger room, and that bigger room is being offered for, I don't know, $25 a night, they'll take it. And so we're seeing demand higher and conversion higher. And that's our theory, is that guests want what they want, right? And they're willing to pay for it because the rates are a little bit lower at the point of booking.
The demand in some places is so much lower. So I think it's a mentality of the type of person that is traveling. If they're a little bit, if you've got full demand pre-COVID, then it's price, because it's that cutthroat market as it always has been. But when I've not traveled anywhere near as much as I did pre-COVID, and certainly not staying at hotels or Airbnb or anything like that, whatsoever. But if I had to, it's now going to be for a necessity. There's going to be a real reason for me to have to do it. So then it's not really going to be so much about price. It's going to be, as you say, it's going to be what are all the other factors that are going to make me feel comfortable? And if I have to pay a little bit more for that, then I'm going to do it. Because again, I don't want to be going to a hotel and finding a pair of men's boxer shorts behind the door, as I did when I went to Liverpool about a month ago.
Well, I think you answered your question when you said it was in Liverpool, but that's just
exactly like. Just suffice to say, they were not mine. There were questions asked of the management of their COVID cleaning policy. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's an interesting point you make about the type of person who's traveling, because we do get, so from some of our customers, when we call them people who have our product, right? So we've been spending most of our time sort of counseling our customers on how to manage. And, we do get pushback from some hotels saying, I'm just so grateful for a warm body to come through the front door that I don't want to bother them with an upgrade. And our response is, that's not the way to think about things, because a guest, it now is even more important that you offer the guest what what it could be, whatever it is in your building that is attractive to those guests, so that they have exactly the stay they want, so they're as comfortable as they can possibly be. And the types of people who are traveling tend to be people who, it doesn't have anything to do with their risk. It has everything to do with economics, right? Because people who've lost their job and, who are struggling financially, they're not going to travel anyway, right? That's the last thing that they don't have the disposable income to travel. People who do travel do have that income. And so this is the right time to make those, and it's a better time even than before.
Well, the income or the credit card limits. They're going to go big,
right?
Yeah, there's two platforms I'd like to add into this dialogue that have been extremely helpful, especially for brand properties right now, because brand is so much of a zombie. It's just a walking. It's there, but it's not there, and you can't really modify a lot of what your content is. There's so many brand hotels that the website doesn't fulfill any of this at all. They have a COVID-19 statement, and Robert, you pointed eloquently out, is inadequate at best. One is, I found that, and I found this out by using it for a client that has restaurants. Waze has a really expanded opportunity on their platform to identify more content about what you're doing for COVID. And I found it first for the restaurants as to pick up and delivery options and the capabilities of getting food with no contact. And that was the first starting point. But then the hotels, you can add that type of context into it too, as to if they're driving down the road and you're saying, we are completely safe, this is our service record, this is our policies, this is our procedures, this is our mandate to our guests and so forth, you actually have room and space for it on there. That also goes for Google My Business. You have now an expanded pieces of content on there that you can put a lot more information, because if your website can't answer the questions, and they really are still considering it, even with that obstacle, to know more about what you are doing, at least you have some voice somewhere other than social. That's still a given. But at least here also that says, these are things that we're doing. And you can even put videos in this stuff to show what you're doing on those platforms, which makes it even nicer, So there is tools. I mean, you would wish that brand would pony up and allow these things to be used and functioned and created. I mean, Marriott took 5 months before they gave you a COVID module that you could modify? Thank you.
Yeah, well,
a little late to the party.
They're furloughed, right? So they don't even have the staff there to.
Oh, there's nobody. Nobody's on the other side of the conversation.
They're furloughed, or they've got rid of them. One of the two.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been layoffs as well, and the industry's losing good people. The industry is losing really good people and talented people at that as well.
Yeah, and you would think that they would at least allow the keys to go back to the owners of the management company and say, look, we don't have it on our side, but we can give you access to things that will allow you to, if you need to do it yourself or hire the people we let go that know how to do it, can come in and actually add this stuff to your content on the site so you're not at a total zero. They're not even doing that. They're just saying, doors closed, we're locked, we're out of, we're nobody's on this side, wait until we're done and we'll give you the answers. Okay. It's killing them.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, on that happy note, I have to go.
Yeah. Right. Okay, Valyn, since you are the last remaining vestige of civility that we have in our organization today.
Wow.
If people want to know more about you and what Nor1 does, where is it they can find you?
So you can find me, Valyn.Perini, on LinkedIn or Twitter, and Nor1 is nor1.com.
Mr. Robert Cole, thank you as always for your well-curated list. We, as you see, hit highlights of it, not all of it by any means. And let me go over and say that if anybody wants to sign up to an amazingly well-curated list by Mr. Cole, they are easily able to go to bit.ly/rockcheetah, lowercase, no space. I've said that every show, Mr. Robert, even while you weren't here, okay? Just so you know. But if they want to know where you and your executive producer are at.
That's right. He's right here. He's checking in. He wanted to know if we've covered the boop and the rut row. So
Where can they find you, Mr. Cole?
rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole on social media.
Is this the beginning of a good trend? Like you're going to be able to pop in, or was this just a once in the moment?
This is probably a once in a moment.
So you're the media that's going to land just before election day. You're just this one-shot deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
before Godzilla pops out of the shell. Okay.
Actually, can I add the boop this week was talking about travel. NASA talking about what happens when you travel at the speed of light, which I thought was pretty good. You've got something with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos fighting it out to see who can try to get to Mars and beyond. And then the rut row is a real rut row, this is from Travel Weekly. Apparently, there's now travel shaming. So if you travel, you're getting shamed for hey, either it's not safe because of COVID, or you're a white person taking advantage of a brown country, or whatever the case may be. So, that's good. So
maybe you should flip those over next time you want to shove them in at the tail end. Maybe do the rut row and then leave on the boop or something. Rather than
I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. And the mysterious and ever-elusive Mr. Dan Wacksman. The privilege of having you, hopefully for next week as well, right? Are you still going to be contained in the board?
Yeah, because where else is he going to go, right?
Hey, I'll take it. Wait till I call up to New York City and talk about how you've been violating that, and they're going to have to keep you for another 14. I got you for a month.
It's just going to be calling from county, aren't you? In an orange shirt.
From Rikers. I want to have a special guest from Rikers.
Yeah.
Right? So, Dan, if they want to know more about you and where to find you and what it is that you do, where can people go?
Go to LinkedIn, and I am there, Dan Wacksman. And then my website is sassato.com, which is SASSATO.com.
And last, but by far the least. No.
Yeah.
Nice.
Our resident South African.
Yeah.
That's how having a new tendency today.
Yeah.
I love it when you're always here. Ben, but you're my favorite.
Live from New Zealand, land of the Hobbit.
Indeed, absolutely, bonza. Obviously, before I jump into that one, this is my first show with Robert and Dan, and it's been an absolutely
really
miserable experience.
Yeah, I was going to say it was absolutely average. Thank you very much. It was an absolute privilege to share my webcam with you guys. So thank you very much, and Robert as ever for curating all of the stuff that you do on the newsletter. But if you want to contact me, it's tris.heaword at 3and6.agency, and that's 3 and 6 as letters, no numbers. Or get me on LinkedIn. My surname is Heaword. It's a bit unique. There are only about 40 of us in the world. And I'm the only one with the forename Tristan, so you can't really not find me. There you go. Not that anybody wants to. So.
That's all true. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Mr. Edward St. who popped in with Flip2. You can find him at flip.to. Or Edward StOnge on LinkedIn as well. And also to our earlier guest from Planable, whose names I will not try to repeat because you know me and names. I cannot
remember them.
I cannot remember them either. I have problems with names and speaking them, and plus they were Romanian based, so I was in challenge the very beginning. I kind of went every time I tried to refer to them. But Planable is a great platform.
Xenia is not that hard.
Yeah.
Dude, look, Cat's name.
3 syllables.
Cat Mohammed. Okay, Cat Mohammed I can't even say right. It took me 2 years to get that one right.
Katija.
See, you say it, that makes sense, but then 5 minutes from now, I'll be like, cat.
Yeah, once you get up to those 3 syllables, that gets really rough for Loren. That's the
and I'm supposed to be the host of this show, and it's like names. Welcome to Bob.
This is Dave. Yeah,
Dave.
Yeah. So, Loren, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how are they going to get in contact with you?
Just don't use your name. Just reach out to me. Just say your name's Bob and we're good. No. For this show and all other previous shows, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 264, and you'll see all other 263 episodes there as well. We're in our 7th season now, I think, something like that. But anyway, so
every 3 months he adds another year. That's right.
Every year. We're going to be up to 20 years by next week. You know that, right? 20 years.
It's the internet.
And by the way, Robert, I have found videos from 2014. So, yeah.
You found the blab? The blab?
2014.
I thought all those disappeared.
No, I had copied a lot of them. So I actually have evidence of a 2014 start.
Actually, this may be the 28th of August. I think, this may be the 6th anniversary.
Well, we went past it 2 weeks ago, but you weren't here. But that's okay.
No. For when I started. No, I didn't.
You're just in your time zone stuff. Oh, not that we actually had the show.
My participation started, I think, at the end of August or beginning of September. So
yeah. Well, you have been a missed component, as has it been Dan, sincerely.
So, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 6, Loren.
And we're now, because of 2 weeks ago, in our 7th year. In our 7th year.
Okay.
Wow.
If you feel better, I'll still say 6. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
The fact that we've been around that long is already too long, right? No. Yeah. Thank you very much, as always. Thank you, everyone that was on the shared cast on all the other platforms. Just as a reminder to everyone, we do translate this into 10 other languages. Romanian will be one of them this week because of our guest co-host. We also rebroadcast this and Sydney time at 11:30 Wednesday mornings, and also recast this UK time, which is somewhere close to South African time, on Wednesdays for the EU as well.
Sorry,
and we do have also a podcast that we do, which we simulcast back at those same times right after those shows as well. So
I have a question.
Yes.
Are the translations subbed? Are they dubbed or subtitled?
No, it's subtitled. I don't even try to do the dub.
Oh man!
No. Right. I do the subtitles with them. I did my podcast where I did do the audio over in Spanish. And it was a girl voice that I used, and that AI did really well. Actually, I got a compliment for it. But that work is so much of a pain in the butt. Oh my god! Because you know what? I tend to talk a lot. Even in 20 minutes, I talk a lot. And if I only had to do it in blocks of 500 words, it took me like 10 downloads before I could actually get all the words translated to the right language. Then I had to edit that stuff. Then I had to put it into the language. Then I had to read it. And I'm like, yeah, it's not worth the extra audience to do that.
You're okay. When it comes to me and Ben, any translation just doesn't understand the accent. It just wants to question
you guys are terrible. I want to let you know, when I do the transcripts for the whole show, I have to look you out and actually go in and go, no, he didn't say,
I know
the Queen is dead.
Long live Trump, the Queen is dead. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff that comes out of translations, you're like, how did you get that from that? I mean, what?
I've told you, I've got a Ford. I've had my last 4 or 5 vehicles have all been Fords, but I have to put on my fake American voice to use the voice control so I can call my wife when I'm in the car. So if I call and I have to say something like that, it goes, "You want to play David Bowie?" I'm like, "No, I don't. What? I did not ask that. I want to make a phone call." So I have to put my poshest fake American voice on. It sounds terrible. But
let's hear it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Oh no! I'll save that one for next week. Oh no! Next time you're on, Robert.
Tris, I had to fix Ben's voice when he jumped on the show last week. It literally said Obama sucks because he said Edward StOnge, but for some reason he went to Obama. And I'm like, no.
Oh, that's brilliant. In fact, I'm gonna hack into his LinkedIn. I'm gonna make that his little title. Obama sucks. Talking of which, and I never said this. Last thing from me, when Planable are in, and Ben's gonna kick my ass for saying it, but he's been using another competitor to Planable to post his own LinkedIn posts. And when he first did it, he put in a test post that just literally said test post, but forgot to turn it off, and that went live yesterday on his LinkedIn. So I quickly messaged him and said, dude, did you mean to send that? Because I'm about to like it, so everybody in my social circle can see it as well.
Yeah.
But he quickly deleted it before I could get to it.
Oh, dang. Because I was going to go like it.
Give it a little insightful notation. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Viral, just his test post. Yeah, all right.
Test post. So, Dan, I hope that you get to join us next week. Robert, I'm not wishing you that you don't have the work, but I do hope that you can make it back sooner.
Yeah.
And thank you all. And Trist, I got to catch up with you guys just in email format. If you wanted to simulcast this on your Facebook page, now that you have it up and going, we can set that up for you if you want. Not the LinkedIn, but the Facebook and stuff like that. We can just do a simulcast for it. So
I did see that I got dropped off the host list completely, though. So fine.
Oh, you did?
By
You're there.
the little.
You're right on the top. You have never missed the number one.
No.
Robert, you're on the top. You're on the top of the list, dude.
If I hit the little information button here within your whatchamacallit, live webinar.
Oh no, you're not in the list anymore. That list, yeah. I put in Trist and because I only have 10 spots, but then I have to go over and put out 20 invites. So you said you weren't going to be around for a while, so yeah.
Fine.
Okay, guys. Dan.
Bye, everybody.
Mommy and Daddy are fighting again, Dan. I'm going to go. I'm going to go hide in my room. I'll see you all. Have a great weekend.
Bye.